Hi, today we're talking about multiplying fractions. I'm banking that this part here is review, so I'm just going to kind of quick bang out the notes and we'll see how it goes. Really, I have kind of two tips, I suppose, on how to do this. One, that I've always looked at multiplying fractions. One, you don't need common denominators, but instead you just multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators, and then simplify. You can kind of look at it like it's one big fraction. So multiply numerators, multiply denominators, and simplify. It's always a good idea. Apparently I can't talk and spell simplify at the same time. It's always a good idea to make sure you simplify at the end. Kind of one little addendum to this is if you can reduce the fractions beforehand, or if you can simplify beforehand, it's going to make your numbers a whole lot more manageable, and maybe you don't have to reduce at the end. So I'm going to say reducing before multiplying can make things easier. And who of us wouldn't want things to be easier? Math's hard enough. Okay, moving on. Alright, so my first example, I'm just going to do a 3/4 times a 1/5. And so we look there, and before we were just looking at could we reduce the 3 and the 4? Is there a common factor of both of those, or the 1 and the 5? Now we actually have other options. We could say, well, the 3 and the 5, could we reduce those, or the 1 and the 4? In this case we can't. I start out with kind of a simpler example. Like I was saying before, I view it as though it's really just one fraction. So now we just have 3 times 1 over 4 times 5. And once we do that math there, the 3 times 1 just gives me 3. The 4 times 5 gives me 20. And if you can't reduce here, then you can't reduce at the end. But it's worth checking in case maybe you missed something. But so 3 is not divisible by 2, it is divisible by 3. 2 plus 0, 2, not divisible by 3. So then this here would be our final answer for that one. Next example, we'll step things up a little bit. And really I just have two more examples. So this one here is going to be 8 over 9 times 3/10. So 8/9 times 3/10. And this one here we're actually able to kind of reduce like crazy. So we could start out by saying, well, the 8 and the 10, those are both going to be divisible by 2. So they're both even. So I divide the 8 by 2, I get 4. Divide the 10 by 2, I get 5. And now the 3 and the 9, they're both divisible by 3. So divide 3 by 3, I get 1. Divide 9 by 3, I get 3. And now I'm done. There's nothing else that I can simplify in there. So now I'm going to take and kind of look at it like it's just one big fraction. Unfortunately, it looks too much like a division sign, but I want to do my 4 times 1 and my 3 times 5. So 4 times 1 gives me 4, and then my 3 times 5 gives me 15. And then always a good idea at the end to go back and, can I reduce this at all? Can I simplify it? So 4, 15, not divisible, both divisible by 2. That's divisible by 3, but that's not, and we're done. So 4/15 then would be the final answer for that fraction. Last one I want to do is a story problem. My fractions don't turn out quite like I'd like to see them there, but it says find the area of a field that's 1/4 mile by 2/3 miles. And for that, really it's just a multiplication problem like we've been doing. And I could say this side here is 1/4, so that's the shorter side. This one here is 2/3. And find area. Maybe I should start by writing my equation. So area is going to be length times width. The order of the fractions really doesn't matter. So I'll maybe do 2/3, my length times my width of 1/4. And if you start out simplifying now, that'll often make things look nicer. So my 2 and my 4 are both even, so I'm going to divide by 2 and I get 1. Divide by 2 and I get 2. So we end up with a 1 times a 1, which would be 1. And a 3 times 2 is 6. and that we can't reduce either. So the total square mileage there would be 1/6 square mile. Or if you want to do the units, you could say miles squared like that. That's all I have for multiplying fractions. It's really just those steps here. And in the next section we'll get into multiplying with mixed numbers as well. Thanks for watching.